Shares of U.S. and international automakers moving to the downside after President Trump's announcement of 25% tariffs on all cars imported into the U.S. and some auto parts starting next week. So who are on the winners and losers list of the trade war here? Joining us now to break it all down, Greg Migliore, AutoGuide editorial director here. Greg, great to have you here with us to help us really parse through what we do and what we don't know at this juncture. But let's just start with your assessment of some of the winners and losers on kind of both sides of the column here.
Hey, good morning, Brad. Thanks for having me. It's kind of a complicated situation because no vehicle, I think, is entirely American-made or fully imported. You know, parts are sourced. It's a global economy. They're sourced from all over. So you look at the companies that are best positioned to perhaps weather this out, and that's Tesla, likely. You've got the Detroit Three, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis are in better positions, but I think it's also fairly inconvenient for them because while they do rely on their U.S. footprint, they also have many factories in Canada and Mexico. I think of those three, Ford is probably relies most on U.S. production though, so they're going to come out a little bit better right now. And then you kind of break it down into the different international automakers. Honda is in pretty good shape, actually. They make a fair amount of their vehicles in the U.S. Toyota, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. The Tacoma comes from Mexico, so that could be subject to tariffs. On the other hand, the Tundra is built in Texas. The Toyota Camry, top seller, built in Kentucky. So it's a bit of a mixed bag for them. And then you have companies like BMW and Mercedes that do have factories in the South, in the American South, the Southeast, but they don't have nearly as much production here as some of the others. So their exposure is going to be greater. And it's, I think at the end of the day, you put consumers also in the bucket of perhaps people who will be most affected, perhaps losers, because most likely, we're going to see price increases, $5,000 to maybe $12,000 increases, depending on the vehicle and perhaps, how severely they're impacted.
Greg, let's pause there for our viewers who are not just investors, but also everyday consumers. Help us understand where consumers who are in the unfortunate position of needing to buy a car at the moment would potentially see the biggest price increases. Are used cars going to potentially increase as well? We've already seen this record run up in the consumer price index when it comes to new cars. How should consumers be thinking about where they might be able to find some opportunity?
So right now, I think if you're in the market, you really want to just have your head almost like on a swivel. I think you want to be aggressive. I think you want to look at used cars because I think while the intent of the tariffs is to try to, increase production in the United States, what's going to happen is used car prices are going to go up. Just it's a supply and demand, simple economics issue. So used car prices are going to go up. You're going to want to probably do as good as you can to try to get a good loan if that's what you're looking to do to finance your new vehicle or your used vehicle. And it just makes the car buying process much more complicated. Now, I think you might see dealers maybe a little more willing to deal because they know their situation, after April 2nd is going to get more and more complicated. So perhaps, in the next couple days, even this weekend, you might want to try to really get in there and see what you can do as far as perhaps getting a newer used car, because complicated is just underselling it, because right now we know what vehicles and what companies will be affected, but then you start to drill down deeper and it's like even Teslas are only about 80% made in the United States. The Ford Mustang is about 80% US parts because not every single part is built in the US. So it's going to be quite complicated.
And so, Greg, all of this in mind, what season of vehicles, because as we know, typically some of the 2026 vehicles would make it onto dealership lots and whatnot by late summer, early fall. So it sounds like, is this a current this year problem or a next year's vehicles that are in production right now type of problem?
Oh, it will be immediately for this year because the car companies, they have to follow the law. So they're going to have to figure out how to apply the tariffs and how to break down which ones may or may not be subject to the U.S., Canada, Mexico agreement, which was passed in 2020 by the first Trump administration. So they need to kind of parse all of that out. But after, April 2nd, it's, we're going live, these things are going to happen. So it's going to be an immediate impact for consumers and for automakers.
Greg, 30 seconds here. I want to talk about Tesla before we let you go. Elon Musk saying the cost impact on Teslas is not trivial when it comes to tariffs, breaking his 3-year streak of not posting about tariffs on X. How should investors and consumers be thinking about the impact on Tesla?
So I think for Tesla, you're going to look at a couple things. One is pricing, but Elon Musk has shown an ability to be very flexible with pricing. He will be aggressive. He will pull back. Sometimes he's all over the map with pricing. I think with Tesla, the big concern for investors is what is their core model? Elon Musk hasn't been focused very much on building cars in the last probably 2 months. I think you want to figure out what are they? Are they a car company? Are they an AI company? Those are the big questions I have, because right now, obviously, Elon Musk seems quite distracted from the task at hand at Tesla.
Optimus wants to know if they're a humanoid robot company, Greg.
That's true. That's a cool one.